Almonty Industries is a tungsten producer and mine developer with Panasqueira operating mine in Portugal and its new flagship Sangdong project in South Korea that is approaching startup. Almonty just reported its Q1 results and provided an update on its progress and expected milestones for the coming year. And CEO Louis Black is here to give some color and update to that. I'm Martin Gago with Market Radius Research. Please remember, this is neither recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Louis, good to see you. How are things going?
Good morning, Martin. It's it's a lot of work, but it's good work. We're heading in the right direction, and it's important work. So I think all in all, I'm happy.
All right. From your Panasqueira mine in Portugal, that's been operating for a very long time. You gave results out of that. For investors, are these expected typical results for this quarter and will next quarter and will generally look like that for the coming quarters and years, or what should people expect from those operations?
Well, it's been running for about 136 years, and it's probably got another 20 to 30 years to go.
Yeah.
The Q1 results, we make money, not a huge amount of money, but we make money consistently. When you're that old and you're that creaky around the edges, the fact that it's still able to produce with the grade that it has and make money at the grade it has, and it also, of course, produces the most desirable product available on the planet. This is why we're paid more than 25% premium for the material. But I think the Q1 represents what this mine will do for the next 20 odd years. I don't think we're not going to see anything dramatic happen to those numbers. It's a well-oiled machine. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And it finances my ability to preserve the extremely important knowledge, the human capital required to produce tungsten. So I suppose you could look at it as a self-financing university.
All right. And it's not so much the mining, but it's the processing and the processing of the ore into final product. That's the key part.
Yes, I mean the processing is the absolute. Tungsten is a particularly difficult metal to process, and as I said, there is no human capital left. I mean, obviously, this mine survived with just one other in Austria, the culling of China in the 70s, 80s, and of course into the 90s or the 80s, 90s, and it did so because it was able to develop technologies. It fought to survive in very low price environments. And when you were able to get through that, you became very good at what you do. And so that's what that mine really represents. The fact that it can even make money with the grade that it has is testament to the knowledge contained within that company.
All right. So speaking of production, you're coming up to production in South Korea at the Sangdong mine. You've taken your final drawdown of 75 million. You've got processing equipment. Just talk a little bit about that and what are the key milestones coming up for the opening and the start of the Sangdong project?
Well, we anticipate opening over the summer, which will be good. I mean, of course, these things always go a little longer than you would like, but it is what it is. When you're walking to the finish line rather than racing, which is exactly how an operator should do things, we want to make sure everything is as we expect. And I think what's very important with Korea is if you look at a project that has five and a half, six times the grade of Portugal, and it's of course the same underground type structure, as well as the fact that it has the same longevity profile as Portugal. You can imagine what we're going to be able to do with it when it does open. But I think what has changed in the world from even a decade ago is opening a mine in a democracy is not for the faint-hearted, and it requires a level of, not sophistication, a level of delicacy in order to ensure there are no regulatory or bureaucratic problems to get to the finish line. And this is a new undertaking for all mines, not just for us. We operated in one environment 10 years ago. Now we're in a very different environment. And then, of course, you throw in national security, which, of course, is what tungsten is all over. I mean, national security is all over tungsten. We've managed to dance through delicately the route. And now this summer, we will, as I said, commence production. But I think the milestones we're looking at is we open in the summer. We'll start immediately on phase 2, which is a doubling of our output, where most of the cost has already been absorbed in phase 1, which we're about to open. That'll take roughly 12 months. And we're now getting far more advanced with our downstream smelter, which is in fact the product that's consumed, for all applications. So we produce the concentrate, we produce it all internally, and normally we provide that to companies that downstream it. But we're going to look to downstream ourselves so that we can be essentially the only vertical smelter that exists in a transparent jurisdiction, which I think is a big thing, as well as the fact that we will be the only American doing that as well.
Yeah, and I would think that's very important for Korea, as they're sort of friendly with the West and the U.S. and that, and it gives them sort of leverage or importance in, hey, we're providing a vital material to our allies, and that puts them in a position of strength and good standing, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, 97% of their tungsten oxide comes in from China. So that's not saying, we're not saying, oh, China is bad. What the Korean government is saying is, you know what? And just as the US as well, we want to give diversification options to our consumers. And that's really what we're providing. We're providing for the first time a real, plausible, diversified route for Korean and US and European consumers.
Yeah. When you start up in the summertime, it's going to be a bit of a slow startup. Whenever you start, there's like, oops, we got a little glitch here. There are little hiccups along the way. When do you think, sort of out of phase one would be in full production mode, or do you think that's going to come right away?
Well, I mean, Martin, I think your oops comment is what keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
And we've spent a great deal of time. We spoke earlier about processing. We've spent a great deal of time on the process in Korea. We have a 16th scale pilot plant in Korea and a 16th scale pilot plant in Portugal. And they've been doing nothing else but running this process for 3.5 years, because that is the key to tungsten. If you can process it, you will succeed. There's no ifs, no buts, especially with the grade that we have. An idiot could do this with this grade. So I'm hoping that my oops moments have already been absorbed over the last 3.5 years. And we had some in the pilot plant, but that gave us enough time to make changes to the plant before full scale, commissioning and full scale, we could change some equipment. We could make those changes. Making changes before the start is cost effective. Making them after the start is a drinking problem. Really, it's a disaster. So we are running a flotation system, which is a chemical process, although it's a flocculant. We call it chemical because it sounds good, but it's really a detergent. We're cleaning the material, we're floating it, which is far more predictable than gravity. Although I like gravity, we use it in Portugal, although in Spain we use flotation and gravity. And gravity is an art form, which is why I like it. It's a bit of artistry. So it's a far more predictable startup. And we are doing soft commissionings as we install, say, the grinding circuit. So any issues we find in that soft commissioning, we can address before the full scale comes online. The most important thing is the mine underground is working. It's done. We already have ore. We have too much ore on surface. I don't know what to do with it. And the soft commissioning is underway on certain areas that have been completed. But I would imagine that we will ramp up relatively quickly. And I don't want to tempt, the mining gods by giving them a challenge to cause me trouble. But I think we've done a great deal of groundwork. We're operators. We're not, promoters. I'm a huge investor in this with over $13 million of my own money. It's very important to me and to my shareholders that this works out the gate. And so I've done this as you should do anything. I had the luxury of time to be able to make sure that I could mitigate my risk from the beginning of this process to the completion. And I know sometimes it's frustrating for guys coming in saying, oh, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Well, we have a lot of governments involved with us, the German, Austrian, South Korean, and now the US government's getting more involved with us. All of these guys make sure that everything is checked and triple checked. No one's looking, so patience is going to be amply rewarded. This will work very quickly out the gate.
All right. And what, in terms of news flow, what should investors expect? Will we get a news release sometime in, July or August saying we're operating now, or like, just so, like, how will we know as investors that what stage we're at and that things are running?
Well, I think the first thing is that once you see all the gray in my beard go, you know things are working
All right.
because it wasn't there before we started. But no, we will, in all seriousness, we have a number of releases that are going to be coming out in short order over the next 3 months, almost weekly, with all the developments that are underway. We will have a big launching event because, of course, all the politicians want to take all the credit for the work that's been done, which is completely normal. And I think I will be, I will ensure that the market knows, immediately, because to me, this will be good for me as well as for them. As I said, I'm a major shareholder. I'm a retail guy. That's what, it's so important. But yes, there will be news when it launches. There will be news continuing between now and then of all of the other things that are ongoing. And believe me, some of these things will be quite surprising. I think there's going to be some surprise faces. But the reason we can give these surprises is because there's just us. That's the insanity of this situation we find ourselves in strategic metals, that we've got a metal that is now just been, 2 days ago, was announced by the International Energy Agency in their top ranking. DALPA, the DOD, it's such a vital metal, but there's just us. We are one of one in that
That's
regard.
crazy. Yeah.
And I know it's insane. I mean, think we're in a free market. There should be at least 5 of us, but there's one. And so all I'm saying is, when this opens, to coin a phrase of the current administration, it will be beautiful.
Okay.
And I think, I don't know whether that's going to jinx it, but no, I think in seriousness, that this is a long-term project with more than 90 years of life. It's going to replicate what Portugal has done, except that it's going to be a far superior earnings machine because of its grade. That's the key. If I've got almost 6 times the grade, and of course, therefore, a lower cost, a significantly lower cost in Korea, what on earth is my earnings profile going to look like?
All right. You are moving from Canada domestication to the U.S. How is that going? What kind of milestone are we going to see that U.S. listing and domestication before production starts up, or after, or maybe around the same time, or still a little unclear?
No. We've got the approval has been done by the shareholders. It will be done over summer. We indicated to the market publicly that we may be considering a NASDAQ listing, an uplisting. And so, any redomiciling will be pegged around that.
Okay.
So, but it's going to happen this year. We will be an American company, and I think I can say that we looked at Delaware as the initial route. I would say, if I was a betting man, I'm looking South Carolina, because ultimately, I hear the food and weather is better, but also I think from a defense element, we are now considered much more defense stock because we are one of one, and because we are an integral part of hardware for defense. So South Carolina makes a lot more sense for us to be.
All right. You mentioned, that you're more of a defense stock. You've joined in the American Defense International, prominent government relations firm. In a sense, you're a defense company, but you are a commodity company. You produce tungsten, which is not unique, but not common, unique outside of China. Why do you need to go through those relations? Can't you just you produce tungsten, you make some phone, or people start phoning you saying, hey, we need some high quality tungsten here. Let's make a deal.
Well, ADI is the largest US defense lobbyist firm. So they only represent one other mine, which is MP Materials, the rare earth project in California. So it's just the 2 of us. I thought I was interviewing them, but they interviewed me. And when we joined, it was really because we wanted to coordinate. The US government is. I'm an American, despite my accent, but the US government is a strange and complex organization. And I think somebody in the House Armed Services Committee said to me once, I'll always remember what she said. She said, the left hand is what the US government needs for national security, and the right hand are the people who have it. And the problem with US government right now is that there's not a clear path of how to get them together. And that's really why we went to ADI, to try and navigate, because I have the luxury of having a product that no one else really has and that is needed by a lot of people. And I'm choosing to provide that to US defense and to Europe and to South Korea, but US defense first and foremost. And my rationale behind it is very simple. One, a small company like me can make a huge difference to a problem that should never have existed in the first place. Step one. I am, and I know it's very unfashionable in the 21st century, I can afford to be an idealist in this. Because the margin to me, whether I sell to the US government or whether I sell to one of my downstream consumers, is the same. I don't get a benefit either way. I just have the ability now to choose. But what I thought would be an easy undertaking, I ring them up, hey, I've got the material, where do you want me to drop it off?
Yeah.
It was anything but. So General Perner has joined my board, who of course has a retired four-star general, and these guys are punching way above my weight. I mean, General Perner and ADI, this is not for a small company like us, but we have something that is integrally important to US national security. And so it was me trying to be pragmatic in finding a way of actually getting it into the right hands. Because ultimately, yes, I could supply my customers, and my customers produce products for the US defense, but there's no guarantee that my material will be the one that's being used. Because we're in a free market, society. Companies don't have obligations except to their shareholders and stakeholders. And therefore they pursue margin, they pursue profits. And there's no guarantee that work they do for the US Defense Department is more profitable than other divisions that they work on. So, and that's no disrespect for them. And that's not to say they're not patriots and that's just not the case, but they have a free market obligation, as I do. But I'm choosing who I want to sell to. And I know that, perhaps this could be frowned upon, but that's my choice because I have it and people want it. So that's why we're involved with ADI. And that's why General Perner, and we have another person joining shortly as well, who are going to help me navigate through this complex monster that is the bureaucracy of the United States government.
All right. I think we've covered the main points here. Is there anything else you want to bring up that I didn't ask about, or any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Well, I think one, as an investor myself, I think what I look at in Almonty is 10, 12 years ago, it's 12 or 13 now. Oh, I'm getting old before my time. We did an IPO in the TSX, and my shareholders from that time are still with the company and are hugely in the money from their stock position. And for a junior miner to be able to say that is unheard of, because normally at this point, junior miners have gone through 3 or 4 sets of shareholders and they're still underwater. Because I fought extremely hard to keep all the value in the business. I've never made a deal with large funds. I've never looked for a rich uncle. We've remained independent, and that has been our strength, absolutely our strength. Yes, it's frustrating and it's hard work sometimes, and there's a lot of stress and tension because it was important. I found the best project finance lender. They'd never supported a tungsten project. I found offtakes with hard floors so that if China collapses the price, I'm okay. All this work has been done to protect and preserve value. And I think sometimes that's forgotten by many people. That's having somebody who's invested very heavily himself into this means that I'm aligned with them much more than I'm aligned with my own management. So I think that would be, as an investor, my takeaway on who Almonty is.
All right, Lewis, thank you very much. Very informative, a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing all the news as it comes out. It sounds like the next few months are going to be exceptionally busy news-wise and event-wise for the company. So
Thank
looking
you.
forward to that.
Thank you, Martin, for having me. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you.